Hello, this is SkyCushion9, and welcome to Transsistance, a series of videos that talks about many of the topics involved with transitioning, from the point of view of a future medical student and a male-to-female transsexual. Over the course of these videos, I will help describe the physical, medical, and other aspects about transition, ranging from the anatomy involved, to hormone replacement therapy, to the various surgeries. I hope that with this series of videos I can help educate both transsexuals who are considering transitioning, as well as those who would like to just better educate themselves about an important event and undertaking in the transsexual world. With that, let's get started. Over the course of these videos, we've discussed hormone replacement therapy, non-physical techniques, and several surgeries involved with transitioning. However, inevitably, we must eventually talk about the big thing. The one many transsexuals work towards, and the one thing many cissexuals are aware of: sexual reassignment surgery. The ultimate goal of sexual reassignment surgery is to essentially reconstruct the external portions of the reproductive system into that of the preferred gender. In other words, the desired effect is to reshape a male to female's penis and scrotum into a vagina, complete with labia, lips, and clitoris, and vice versa with female to males. As the procedure exists now, it is currently impossible to completely reconstruct the reproductive system. A functional uterus and ovaries cannot be fashioned from a male to female's tissue, and functioning testicles and tubules like the vas deferens cannot be fashioned from a female to male's tissue. So a male to female cannot get pregnant, and a female to male cannot impregnate a person. So why would one bother getting this surgery? The external reproductive parts of the body can be a serious source of dysphoria, anxiety, and depression for a transsexual. There are many legitimate reasons for a person to want SRS. Some want it so they can be intimate with another person as their desired gender without being harmed. Some want to avoid the anxiety of having to hide or disguise their groin every day. And there are many different reasons, but they typically boil down to personal body comfort. Now, for the purposes of this video series, I won't actually talk about male to female sexual reassignment surgery because technically I already have. And in fact, that video, or more specifically the positive and encouraging response to that video, was the reason why I started this little series. I underwent sexual reassignment surgery back on May 4th, 2013, and prior to that I posted a video describing what would happen to me shortly, and many people found it informative and helpful. So for now, those wishing to learn about what happens with the male to female sexual reassignment surgery, I'll place a link in the video leading to it. And if you feel that I should expand upon it or think it's lacking a lot of details, I can make a new video explaining it. Until then, I will now go to the opposite side, the female to male sexual reassignment surgery. From a personal standpoint, with transitioning, female to males tend to have an easier time compared to male to females. They have an easier time presenting as a male, they have less surgeries to go through, and their hormone replacement therapy can be considered much more effective in the need of passing as their desired gender. However, the one thing that is less successful on the female to male side, unfortunately, is their version of the sexual reassignment surgery. For female to males, the obvious goal is to construct the penis and scrotum from the vaginal tissues. The downside that exists here, compared to the male to female counterpart, goes back once again to the build not break principle. Comparing the male and female external reproductive systems, the male system has a much larger amount of mass than the female. Typical males have on average a 5-inch penis when erect, and a scrotum which is the size of a small baseball, while the female structures are primarily internal, being the vaginal canal, the clitoris, etc. The male to female surgery goes in the direction of more to less, but the female to male surgery has to go the opposite way. It has to construct more from less. Because of this, female to male sexual reassignment surgeries have a more uphill battle as far as development goes and are considered to not be as successful as male to female, which at this point can create a neo-vagina indistinguishable from a genetic female. For this reason alone, many female to males elect to not undergo sexual reassignment surgery because there is not a strong guarantee of a desired end result, and many don't want to risk the great pains resulting from surgery to test if they can get it or not. As far as bottom surgeries go, female to males tend to stop with hysterectomies, as this accomplishes the deactivation of their female reproductive system. However, recent developments with female to male sexual reassignment surgery have started to produce satisfactory results, so it can be hypothesized that the procedure will improve considerably in the years to come. If, however, a female-to-male wishes to proceed with sexual reassignment surgery due to an overwhelming discomfort with the current presentation of their genitalia or whatever other reason, there are two different major procedures that can be done. For both techniques, they depend upon the developed clitoris, so it's advised for patients to wait for hormone replacement therapy to take its full effect, which, as stated many times before, is about 2 years after starting hormones. Procedure 1. Metoidioplasty. Metoidioplasty is defined as a surgical change towards the male. When the female-to-male undergoes hormone replacement therapy, the clitoris enlarges and develops as a result of testosterone, and metoidioplasty takes advantage of this development. The procedure starts by cutting the skin around the enlarged clitoris, specifically the underside and the lateral carura, which suspend the tissue in place, as well as the ligaments that support the clitoris. This essentially frees the clitoral tissue from the pubic bone, which is why this is known medically as a clitoral release. After this is accomplished, surgeons take mucosal tissue from either the vagina or other similar locations in nature, like the cheeks, and fashion an extended urethra, which is fed along or through the enlarged clitoris. Skin from the labia minora is then used to fashion skin for a neopenis, and testicular implants are placed inside the labia majora. Finally, the labia lips are fused together, which practically forms the neoscrotum. Scrotoplasty is often performed in 2 phases, with the first phase involving the stretching of the skin, and the second being the creation of the scrotal sac. A hysterectomy, vaginectomy, and or oophorectomy are performed alongside the surgery, if they haven't been completed already. The advantages of having a metoidioplasty is that it's able to produce a natural-looking and fully sensate penis, and that the penis is able to have erections outside of outside aid. Scars are also limited to this procedure, as it is limited to the groin region, and recovery time is shorter than the other procedure to be listed soon. However, the major disadvantage of this procedure is the resulting small sizing of the penis, as the clitoris doesn't typically develop larger than 2 inches, which means that sexual penetration can be limited if not impossible. A slightly altered version of the procedure, known as the Centurion method, can add additional girth to the penis by cutting around the round ligaments, which run along the sides of the labia, from the labia majora, and bring them together along the shaft of the clitoris. However, it still doesn't produce a typical male-sized penis. If a person is lacking in money or wants to avoid some risks involved in more serious surgery, one can elect to only have a clitoral release done. This allows a faster recovery and lower costs, but the patient still becomes unable to pee while standing up, and if the person elects not to have a scrotoplasty done, the appearance of their genitalia will be very minimal, as well as persisting the presence of vagina, unless the patient elects for a vaginectomy. Procedure number 2. Phalloplasty. Phalloplasty is medically defined as the construction of the penis, and is often used for men as a penis enlargement procedure, or to reconstruct the penis for those who had lost theirs in an accident. For female to males, this involves the use of skin grafts to construct a functional penis, including a urethral extension. The way a phalloplasty is performed, as well as the ultimate results, depend largely upon the location of the skin grafts were acquired, and over the years, a large number of techniques have been developed. I won't go over each and every last technique, as this would be exhaustive, so I'll mention some of the more important and more successful ones. For starters, we have the Giles technique. The first of the techniques used, the Giles technique removed a flap of skin from the abdominal area and essentially wrapped it around the enlarged clitoris, and a second flap is used for the extension of the urethra. This procedure, however, never produced a sensate penis, not to mention some of the skin had a tendency to die, and a flexible rod had to be inserted to achieve erection, although this part is necessary for many of the phalloplasty techniques to be listed soon. This procedure was improved by the suitcase handle technique, where the flaps of abdominal skin were left connected to the abdomen to re-establish a stable blood supply before it was moved down to the genitals, and with limited cell death, but is overall considered to be outdated and is avoided by modern surgeons. Free tissue flap transfer. In FTFT, a skin flap is removed completely from the donor area and transferred, with its existing nerves and blood vessels intact, to the groin area. There, the flaps, nerves, and blood vessels are connected microsurgically to the nerves and blood vessels of the groin, while the donor skin is shaped into that of a penis and then grafted onto the groin. This is done with the aim of the new penis becoming erotically sensate, while also helping to ensure proper blood supply to the penis, preventing cell death. Out of all the sources of the skin flaps, the forearm of all places is actually considered to be the best, and has the advantage of producing the most realistic looking and erotically sensate penis. The consistency of the skin of the forearm is the closest to the natural penis, and the portions of the brachial nerve serve as good connectors to the clitoral nerves. The major downside is that this procedure can produce a massive scar at the site of where the graft was taken, and in scenarios involving locations like the arm, it has a risk of limiting the function and movement of the arm. Number 3. MLD flap. The most modern version of phalloplasty, and that of the FTFT, MLD involves the use of skin from the side of the upper torso just under the arm. The skin is located over the latissimus dorsi and is known as the musculocutaneous latissimus dorsi flap. The procedure for this follows the same general procedure as the FTFT, but has the advantage of placing the scar in a more inconspicuous location, and provides the neopenis with an improved look versus skin from the forearm. The urethra is constructed from vaginal or cheek cells, much like metoidioplasty, and a flexible rod is placed to allow erections. Scrotoplasty is followed in every procedure. The advantage of phalloplasty is that it produces a much larger penis than metoidioplasty, and one that is actually capable of penetrative sex. However, patients must pay a much higher cost as a result of this girth. Phalloplasty is markedly more expensive and often requires multiple surgical visits, as some procedures go well over several phases. This also means that patients have to go through a significantly longer recovery time and suffer through larger amounts of pain. Also, female males have a high risk, about 1 in 4 according to one study, of complications with the neophallus, including possible cell death and blood-related issues, and have an even higher risk of urethral issues, about 55% in the same study. In other words, there is a higher risk involved with phalloplasty, but also a greater reward should it go successfully. And with all that said and done, this actually brings Transsistance to a close. I may decide to cover other topics in the future, but for now, this is Guy Christian 9, and I hope you enjoyed this series of videos. I know I did. I'll see you in a later project.